I was reading the comments on Dan's video about auditors, and I noticed a lot of people were asking about trespass and whether it's a crime or not. So I thought what I could do is just a brief overview of the law of trespass generally. So the first thing to understand is trespass, simple trespass is not a crime. It is, however, a civil wrong, a tort, and it creates a cause of action. Now, if somebody is trespassing, what are the elements of trespass? Well, it's basically entering somebody's property, whether that's land or a building, without permission. It's that simple. If somebody does that, then it's one of these things where we say it's trite law that, in other words, there's no actual authority for this. It's very hard to find a case and point and say, look, this is the one that says trespass is a cause of action. However, it's clearly been understood, that it's a freestanding cause of action. So you can just go to court and say, I would like an injunction to remove that person from my property, and I would like damages for any losses that have occurred. You can also use reasonable force to remove a trespasser from your property, and again, that's whether it's land or a shop. But what does without consent mean? Well, generally speaking, your property is yours to do what you want with, and you can decide who comes in or out. Sometimes it'll be an explicit invitation. If you invite your friends round for dinner, then they enter your house not as a trespasser. There can also be implied consent. Shops operate like that. Basically, you go to the supermarket, it's just an implied license. We use the word license just to mean you have been granted permission. You've been granted a license. In other words, you're allowed to do something. So you have a license to enter the property. But that license can be withdrawn at any time. They can ban you from the store, or they can say, right, we've seen you doing something we don't like, please leave. They can tell you straight away, and if you don't move, they can actually force you out. So that's, civil trespass. But when does it become a crime? Well, it becomes a crime when it's an aggravated trespass. So what's an aggravated trespass? An aggravated trespass is where you enter somebody's property with the intention of disrupting a lawful activity, either on that property or an adjacent property. But the thing here is it has to be disrupting a lawful activity. But the activity just has to be lawful per se. It doesn't matter if that activity is being carried out unlawfully. It's probably easy to explain by example. Say you want to stop somebody building a house. Well, building houses is a lawful activity. But you say, aha, yes, but they haven't got all the proper planning consents in place. So arguably, that house isn't legal. It doesn't matter. You would still commit aggravated trespass if you entered land to try and stop that. Because, like I say, the key thing is house building per se is lawful. It doesn't matter it's being carried out unlawfully. And this crops up a lot with like hunt sabbing and things like that. Because if you disrupt a trail hunt, trail hunting is actually legal. But you say, well, it's been carried out unlawfully though, because they're not technically trail hunting, they're actually, letting the dogs loose and breaking all the rules about trail hunting. I say, no, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the trail hunting is being carried out unlawfully. Trail hunting is lawful, so that's an aggravated trespass. But you can get to the stage where you cross a line where this isn't just a lawful activity being carried out unlawfully. This is actually now crossed the line and turned what was a lawful activity into an unlawful activity. So if, for instance, it was just, we are just going to have a traditional old-fashioned fox hunt and be really, not even pretend that it's not a fox hunt, then arguably that would be an unlawful activity. Where else does trespass crop up? Trespass crops up in burglary. The definition of burglary, the elements of the offence are entering as a trespasser with the intent to either steal, commit criminal damage, assault somebody, or carry out another type of assault that YouTube doesn't like me talking about. But you have to enter as a trespasser. Now, if it's just your house and it's night time, then clearly you haven't given permission to enter into your house. So if if somebody sneaks in your house, they don't have to break in or anything. Just walking through an unlocked door still counts as trespassing. then that, assuming they go in there with the intention, they don't actually have to steal anything or hurt you or assault you or cause criminal damage. The offence is committed as soon as they enter with that intent. However, if somebody is already on your property with permission, then the mere fact they steal somebody or hit you doesn't necessarily make it a burglary, because the mere fact that they are, you probably would have withdrawn their licence to enter had you known they were going to do that. Say you invite somebody around to your house and they just steal something. Unless you put a sign up saying, condition of entry, you must not steal something or assault me or commit criminal damage. But this can crop up, say for instance with shops. If you just steal something from a shop, because you're allowed to be in there, it's just theft. But what if you'd banned somebody from a store and then they later re-entered and stole something? Well, arguably that could be a burglary. It can also be burglary if the licence was obtained fraudulently. In other words, the permission to enter, it was only granted because of some deception. The police call that burglary artifice, which I think is a great name for it. But it's things like where people pretend to be from social services, with pensioners, and then, can I come in? Well, yes, they have been invited in, so that, it appears they have, they're not a trespasser, but because they lied to get in, then the licence was granted under false pretences, and it doesn't count. And what counts as entering? This is a really interesting case. It's any part of you that enters. And there was a case where somebody was trying to climb through an open window into a lady's bedroom, and they were completely naked. However, they didn't get all the way because she screamed and they ran away. However, he was very excited apparently about this, and a certain part of him had actually crossed the window ledge. And they said that was enough to count as entering as a trespasser. And then the argument was they had to prove the intent to do something unlawful, but the fact that he was breaking in, sneaking into a lady's bedroom at night fully naked and in that condition, perhaps unsurprisingly, they were able to convict him. I wonder if what he was saying back in the prison, I got nicked because, I managed to burgle a house from like 12 inches away. Who knows? But there you go. So that's pretty much everything about trespass. There are other types of trespass as well. There are things like trespass to goods. Trespass is basically interfering with somebody else's property, whether that is what we call a real property. Real property is land, or chattel property. Chattels, stuff that's not land, things you own, your telephone and things like that. As far as the law's concerned, that's technically not real property. That's just a chattel, but it still counts. So there you go. As always, hope you found that vaguely useful, vaguely interesting. More old mining stuff for you. Like I said, this is again on the Great Flat Lode. Now, what's interesting about this is because so many people, were mining here. How did they get rid of the ore? Well, they actually exported it to Wales for processing, and in return they got coal back from Wales to drive all the steam engines. At the height of the tin mining operation here, there's a thing called the Great Adit, which is a big water pumping system. There's like 40 miles of tunnels under the ground that all the mines actually shared the expense of, because it was in everybody's collective interest that the mine, if your neighbour's mine floods, it bursts through into your mine. So they were very cooperative about that, but what they weren't cooperative was about the transport. So one company, Bassett, they built a tramway up to a place called Portreath on the north coast, which was, very easy access to Wales. And all the other mine owners said, hey, can we use your fancy new railway? And he said, yeah, of course you can, there'll be a slight admission fee. Yeah, no worries. And it was actually more than the profit of the tin. So a bunch of other people said, well, we'll go make our own railway. And they built a railway down to a place called Devon on the south coast. And theirs was a proper railway. It had steam engines, Spitfire, Miner and Smelter. Devon's that place I've been before where I filmed, where that was the old loading bay for the ships. And again, they did the same thing, export ore, import coal. But when obviously mining finished, those railways were dug up, but they still continue. And the great thing is you can follow the old railway line from the north coast to the Great Flat Lode, that's the Bassett one, and then you can pick up the old tramway that goes to the south coast, and that's now called the Bisso Trail, and it's a place I walk a lot. If you're wondering, it takes me 3.5 hours to walk from Portreath to Devon, and that's assuming I don't stop at any of the rather nice pubs on the way. So there you go. Oh, yeah, like and subscribe. Yeah, sorry, Dan. Yeah, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, etc., etc.